Jaguar's XK luxury sports car is now the car it should always have been, thanks to the fitment of a 5-litre V8 power plant that sounds as gorgeous as the car looks. Whether you order your XK as a coupe or a convertible, it has a sense of occasion missing from its German rivals and remains a Grand Tourer par excellence.
The letters X and K are an integral part of Jaguar's heritage. Over 60 years ago, the company redefined the sports car with the 1948 XK, a car that offered beauty, grand touring panache and effortless performance. Now, the Coventry marque has been bringing us pretty much the same kind of thing ever since, most notably with the legendary E-Type, badged XKE over in the States. Now, this car was everything a Jaguar sports car should be, massively rewarding when you were in the mood and massively relaxing when you weren't. Successive XJS and XK8 models launched in 1975 and 1996 failed to replicate it, and it was only when this XK was launched in 2006 that we could once again talk about a Jaguar sports car in the same breath as a Porsche 911. Even this XK didn't quite hit the mark at Jaguar's first attempt. The standard 4.2-litre V8 that most people bought, though fast and characterful, didn't quite have the speed to match obvious rivals like BMW 650i. The cabin also wasn't quite what you'd expect for a £75,000 car, and the handling could have been sharper, hence the need for this improved version, which now has a 380 brake horsepower V8 that's pretty much as quick as the supercharged original XKR was, and that version now has 510 brake horsepower in XKR guise, which is more power, I think, than most owners will ever be able to use. Hence the reason why I'm trying the standard V8 version here. Let's check it out. If you were to design a Grand Touring coupe or convertible, there are a few givens. You'd need a very modern stiff chassis that allowed the suspension to do its work. You'd also want a torquey, very powerful engine, a great quick-witted gearbox and a really good responsive steering. Now tick all of those for the Jaguar XK. One piece of advice would be to avoid the 20-inch alloy wheel option. It really does have a noticeable effect on ride quality. Plus, you don't want to look like Rio Ferdinand on a shopping trip. This XK's 5-litre 380 brake horsepower petrol V8 wallops you from rest to 60 in just 5.2 seconds on the way to an artificially limited maximum of 155 miles an hour. Now, it's a wonderful engine, ever eager to rev, and with a burble that becomes an angry snarl as you ascend the rev range. Switch the rotary Jaguar drive selector from drive to S, that's manual mode, and you can even hear the engine crackling and popping as you go down the standard 6-speed automatic gearbox using these lovely steering wheel mounted paddles. But how many times will you really want to do that? The original version of this XK was, after all, more at home on an autobahn than a B-road. If you wanted a more focused luxury sports car, you bought a Porsche 911. Now today it's not quite as clear-cut as that, thanks to this Jaguar's clever new active dynamic system. Now here, a computer linked to active dampers reviews road conditions and steering inputs 150 times a second to decide whether the driver needs a luxurious ride or optimal grip. The limited slip differential in the even more powerful XKR makes it even more capable, as it needs to be, with 510 brake horsepower and a rest to 60 capability of just 4.5 seconds. If these Jaguars could just replicate Porsche's pin-shaft steering, they'd be right on the 911's tail.
The XK was the first Jaguar sports car to feature aluminium construction, essential since it helps outweigh the hefty weight of this 5-litre V8 engine, even if it doesn't offer any appreciable advantages over obvious rivals. Now, this improved XK offers few visual changes over its predecessor, though the eagle-eyed will spot this slightly revised front end with its restyled bumper, including these chromed side gills. Other tweaks include mirrors incorporating side repeater LEDs, these LED tail lights and this smarter rear body valance. Inside the cabin, there's the same rotary Jaguar drive selector that we first saw in the XF Saloon. Otherwise, the design is the same assured piece of work. That oval front grille and the way the rear cabin tapers in over the haunches is classic E-Type. Even this front badge on the grille is a nod to that illustrious sports car. The whole effect is sinewy and muscular, the sheet metal stretched over something seriously purposeful. There's a welcome injection of practicality with this XK. Owners of Jaguar's old XK8 will remember that car's relatively cramped passenger compartment and tiny boot. No such issues here. The XK features a practical hatchback arrangement with 330 litres of space inside, a figure that falls to 313 litres of boot space if you opt for the convertible. Inside, the XK's interior feels even more spacious than the improved wheelbase has enabled it to be, thanks to clever use of colour combinations. The exception is with these cramped rear seats, which will be pretty tight even for kids. The improved XK models feature revised door switch packs, smarter column stalks, and the choice of wood or aluminium inserts. I'd go for the latter. In my opinion, the XK looks better with a little less lumber in the cabin. This is a modern car and it doesn't need to feel clubby and quaint. List prices suggest that you'll pay from around £60,000 for your 380 brake horsepower V8 XK Coupe, or from around £72,000 for your 510 brake horsepower V8 supercharged XKR, with a £6,000 premium in each case if you want the convertible version rather than this coupe. Now at the bottom end, that's the same kind of money that you'd pay for something like a BMW 650i, but it represents a substantial saving over cars like the Mercedes SL 500 or the Maserati Gran Turismo. For a cool £5,000 more, portfolio models like this one add gorgeous 19-inch alloys and lovely suede headlining. As you're choosing between coupe and cabriolet, XK and XKR, in comparison with rival offerings, you'll need to take into account that this Jaguar offers a much higher standard specification than any of them. A Porsche 911, for example, that would cost you £3,000 more, charges a substantial amount for the touchscreen satellite navigation system that this Jaguar includes as standard. Other standard Jaguar features include doors and ignition that don't need keys thanks to this smart key locking system. You've got adaptive bi-xenon front headlamps, a switchable TRAC traction and stability control system, clever dynamic ProTech front headrests that guard against whiplash on your neck in an accident, 6 airbags, and a clever adaptive cruise control system that keeps you the right distance behind a car in front on the motorway. There's also a really neat ABS system that can adapt the pressure on each wheel in particularly heavy brakings to give you the maximum amount of steering response. Now, in absolute terms, the Jaguar XK is an expensive car to run, but compared to its key rivals, the pence per mile cost of around £1.40 per mile stacks up pretty well, mainly thanks to good residuals. After about 3 years of standard motoring, you'll be unlucky if you don't get around half of your original purchase price back. And that's only a little behind what Porsche achieves with their industry-leading 911. Fuel economy isn't too bad as long as you're not too heavy on the throttle pedal. Jaguar claim a rather optimistic average for the XK of 25 miles per gallon that falls to 23 miles per gallon in the supercharged XKR. CO2 figures are 264 for the XK Coupe and 292 for the XKR Coupe. Other figures you'll need to factor in are pricey Group 20 insurance and quite expensive servicing. On the positive side, the XK's reliability record is better than that of its German rivals. One reason why JD Power customer satisfaction surveys put Jaguar ahead of its German alternatives Mercedes, Audi and BMW. It's not often that we Brits get something unreservedly right, but this is one of those times. This is a genuine 5-star luxury sports coupe that can compete with and face down the best that the German prestige marques can throw at it. It's competitive in most areas and clearly superior in a few. The fact that arguably its closest rival is the much more expensive Aston Martin V8 Vantage speaks volumes about this Jaguar's blend of abilities. It still isn't the driver's car that, say, a Porsche 911 is, but these days it's a lot closer. And choosing a set of keys for a long-distance drive, the Jaguars are the ones that you pick up every time. It's certainly a much better balance between these two extremes than you get from, say, a BMW 6 Series or a Mercedes SL. In short, the 5-litre engine has created in the XK the car it should always have been. A desirable car, a benchmark car, and a quintessential slice of Britishness.